Before, yes, I would like to just talk for a minute. This meditation is, for those of you that are relatively new here and some pretty new, this meditation is completely non-sectarian. It doesn't matter what your background is, what religion you are, what race you are, because every human being has inside himself a system that will connect them to higher energy in the universe. And the only purpose of this meditation is to help anyone who comes, and participates in this to build that system. The first thing it does, it truly helps us to work out all of these human levels that we, our insecurity, our anxieties, our fears, all of the stuff that runs rampant inside people and keeps them from truly developing a strong chakra system that connects them with God. So the first thing that happens is we truly build our humanity. Love, compassion, forgiveness. The highest levels of what it means to be a human being. And in the building of our humanity, it's a step, a major step on a ladder that truly helps us to develop a system inside that can connect us with higher energy in the universe. Now, as I always say, this takes time. People have lived with themselves all their life, and, all of these habits and patterns and all this conditioned behavior inside people has been built up inside them. And then it takes time to transform all of that conditioning into a spiritual life, even into living with the highest level of what it means to be a human being. I always say happy people are enlightened people. And I truly believe this. People who can live with love and joy in their hearts and live that way. Those people have attained the highest state that a human being can attain on the earth, which is simple. And it's so simple, it's almost ridiculous, just to be a happy person. And it doesn't matter what one's background is, where you live. Look, I frankly have been all over the world, and it's the same condition everywhere with people. And it's also the same condition because very few people really know how to work on themselves, really know how to build the kind of system that will ultimately bring a state of happiness in them and a state of joy and love inside them, and a connection with spirit, God, higher energy in the universe. To be able to be nurtured by that energy every day of our lives. That guides us instead of ego and mind and insecurity and fear. Higher energy, God, spirit, guides us. And that spirit is not going to guide us if we're full of ourselves, with our ego and, our self-importance and all this stuff that runs around inside people. So the meditation has a singular purpose. It's to truly help people to get past themselves and connected to spirit, God. And again, I'll repeat, it's non-denominational. It doesn't matter what a person's background is, where they come from, what their, religious belief systems are. I'm totally uninterested in that. What I'm interested in is that every person who attends these classes truly wants to have a spiritual life, wants to grow and open in themselves and build a system inside that can help them to be guided every day of their life by God. Not so much by religion, but by spirit. Spirit. And I think that basically is what's missing in just about everybody. The system to allow themselves to be guided by higher energy in the universe. To refuel ourselves with spirit instead of ego and tension and the mind and all of these other things that we have to transform into a level of our humanity that can say thank you and can be grateful to higher energy for for truly coming and guiding us in our lives. Does anyone have a question? Now, these are not things difficult to understand. They're very difficult to do. And as I've said many times, the only reason they're difficult to do, we're up against the one person who keeps us from doing it, and that's ourselves. Once we get free of ourselves, you understand, we perceive the world in a very different way. And it no longer intimidates us, threatens us, frightens us. It's a teacher. Life is the teacher, the ultimate guru, the teacher. We just need to be developed enough to be able to listen to the teachings and then use them in a practical way to grow inside ourselves. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? And to just really get strong enough in ourselves that we're no longer afraid of allowing everything in this world to be one's teacher, telling us what we need to do to grow inside ourselves. I mean, can you imagine all the obstructions that would vanish in a person if they do this kind of thing? It's extraordinary. There would be a lightness of being. There would be love. There would be joy. There would be, all of the things that we're born here to live with. Instead of people tormenting themselves with all this insecurity and anxiety, and anger, frustration, et cetera, et cetera. But it takes time. And as I've said many times, my job is not to be a guru. You know, that's not my job. My job is to transmit all of the things I have learned. So anyone who comes and does this meditation can build the kind of system that I'm talking about. You know, I'm not looking for disciples. I'm not looking for students. I'm looking for people that want to have a spiritual life. And that energy in them can be nurtured, and my job is to help them grow and do it. Does anyone have a question?
Yes, Stuart.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Chris.
I'm wondering, during open eyes, there's a lot of energy coming in. My system seems too small. Like I have difficulties with collecting the energy.
Chris, that's why you come to the meditation class, to build a system inside yourself that will enable you to absorb this kind of energy. Nobody has, you got to realize the energy of God is infinite in the universe. It's beyond any limitation. Who has a system that can absorb all of that? Nobody. But we can grow slowly and gradually and build that kind of system inside that enables us to absorb more and more and more of that energy. So you're here not to be perfect. You're here to learn how to get closer and closer to perfection. That means you're here to build the kind of system that will help you to do what you're asking about. I don't expect somebody to sit down here and be perfect in what they do, but I respect profoundly people that are willing to work on themselves to grow. Because I remember myself when I first met my teacher. I would sit around him, and in 5 seconds, I was like a piece of burnt toast. His energy was so strong. And all it reminded me was, Stuart, you need to grow. You need to get stronger. And I grew and I grew and you know, I was able to keep absorbing more and more of that Shakti, that energy, because the chakra system got stronger inside me. So these classes are about that. They're not about being perfect. I know the energy is very strong. I would prefer it to be very strong than very weak. This way people can truly say, well, I got to grow. Look how powerful this energy is and what I can do with it if I really grow in my life. So don't worry about it, Craig. You know, yes, it's strong. You know, it was strong for me when I first met Rudy. As I told you, I would sit around him and I would leave his gallery, or I felt like a piece of burnt toast. But it didn't chase me away. That Stuart, you got a lot of growing to do in your life.
Okay, Stuart, I understand, and I've been doing it for quite a few years, but still, like the pelvic floor, it's like really difficult for me. Like bringing the energy all the way down, it feels like it's narrower and there seems to be no empty space in there.
Yes.
So the question is what to do. Like, is there an intention and a direction of
Yes, there is.
pushing the energy all the way down?
No, there's a way of allowing the energy to go all the way down by relaxing it down. By getting less tense inside yourself, relaxing inside, and then the energy will go down. And then have patience. Have patience with this. It doesn't, you know, I mean, look, I haven't seen you for 3 years or something. Last time I was in Belgium, you know, and you've come back to my classes. The energy of these classes are very strong. Have patience, and it'll come.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Hi, Stuart.
Yes.
I'd like to ask.
I don't know what I would do if you didn't ask a question.
And the last time I was at the class, you spoke about your work life and your business life, and how you needed to learn how to not be stressed and not have fear in order to be successful. And I wondered if you'd talk a little bit more in detail about the anxiety and stress and fear part and how you surrendered that.
You know, I mean, this might be a little difficult for you and for everyone else. You know how I did that? I would put myself in the most outrageous situations. I mean, like one of my favorite stories is I'd been working in Texas. I had ashrams all over Texas. I was working 18 hours a day, and Rudy came. And we're talking on the porch of the house where I was living, and he said, Stuart, you're not working hard enough. So I said, Rudy, what should I do? So he said to me, I want you to buy that building. The building was a small shopping center that was connected directly to the house, the house that we owned and where the ashram was. So I said, Rudy, I have $600 in the bank. How am I? He said, anyone can do it with money. And you know, a month later, I bought the building. I figured out and worked on, and the way I bought the building was I would go to a higher force in the universe, God. I would draw down the energy to build a system inside me that was strong enough to do it. And as that system grew inside me, the money came to me to buy the building. I borrowed from here, I borrowed from there, I borrowed, and the money came and I bought the building. You know, then I paid back all the money I borrowed to give a down payment on the building. The building became a restaurant. I mean, it became a fantastic situation. It also made it possible eventually for me to move back to New York. The second thing was I had this antique store down in Texas, right? And I was selling kind of turn of the century junky furniture and this and that and the other. And I get a phone call from Rudy's mother after Rudy died, after Rudy had passed on. This was about maybe 8 months later, a year later. And she said, Stuart, how would you like to buy 2 truckloads of art from me? And I said to her, Ray, you know, I'm in Denton, Texas, Ray. I said, you know, this is the center of Baptist America here, you know? I mean, she said, oh, well, think about it. You know, I thought about it for 5 minutes, called her back and said, I'll do it. I'll do it. I went up to New York, and some great stories involved in all of this. And I finally wound up buying all this art from her. I wound up owing her $175,000, which was probably about over $1 million today. And and again, it was the same answer. I had to go up and draw that energy down and to build a system that enabled me to take care of this, to take care. And in doing that, all the fear went away. I stopped being afraid of money. I stopped being afraid of being able to raise money, to be able to use money, to develop my life, and also to walk away from it when the time came for me to change and to go and live somewhere else. So all of this was part of the way that I did this. Now, I don't recommend this to everybody, but you know, there was a part of me that understood that there was a power much higher than me, and it was capable of drawing down the energy that could make these situations work. And I wound up paying her back. Well, she passed on, but I paid her son back, David, you know, the money that I owed them. And when I moved back to New York, I had an antique store there that looked like it was there for 20 years. First day I opened my door, I did business there. It looked like my gallery was there. And then eventually it grew into a huge business, you know, selling to major museums and it was unbelievable what happened. You know, the biggest collectors in the world that bought the kind of things that I was selling. All of that grew. You know how it grew? It came from when I moved to Texas. Rudy asked me to go to Texas. I had $30 to my name. $30. And I needed to do something to get a business going. I had 25 people living in a house, in an ashram. They had to be fed. They had to, you know, and so I said, okay, I was going, and I met a guy, never forget this, who had like 5-7 barn loads of furniture. And he wanted to get rid of it all. And I said, well, what do you want for me? He said, $30. It's exactly what I had in my pocket. I gave him $30. That's how my business started. To eventually be selling things to, you know, the British Museum, the Guimet in Paris, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But it took years. It took 10 years to get to that place. From selling, you know, things that were worth $10 and $20. But all of it came about through developing the capacity to deal with that kind of way of living that, as I say, you know, owing people a lot of money and not being afraid to work on myself and grow and get the money to pay back my debts. Now, I don't recommend this. We live in a different world today. You know, it's a very strangely different world today. But that was my path and how I overcame the fear of money. It's how I'm doing what I'm doing today. I don't, you know, I mean, I'm not in that art business anymore. I just do what I do. And, you know, and enough comes to support me. And, you know, people make donations and they support me that way. I get, you know, all kinds of retirement stuff that helps. And my job is to teach spiritual work. It is not to be a businessman. I worked through that. I went through that coma, worked through it, it helped me overcome tremendous fear that I had in myself. One, about being successful in the world. And secondly, money, you know? So that was my path to doing this. Putting myself in I would jump into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and swim for shore, and found a way to do it. And I discovered that there's nothing to be afraid of in success and money. And all of these things are the blocks that we build in ourselves that keep us from having wonderful lives. Money is just energy. It's just energy. I remember I was supposed to go to India with Rudy, and I flew to New York. We were supposed to leave in a day or two. And I go into his gallery, and I had no money then. When he told me he would buy the tickets, and we would go to India. So I came, and he said, "Stuart, I don't have any money. I don't know if we're going to be able to make the trip." So I saw him that day sit down and work on himself, and made more than enough money, not only to run his business, but for us to make the trip that day. And I saw what was possible if a human being had that kind of power inside himself or herself. And was able to use it. There's a very funny story. Just to finish this up, I've told this before. You know, when I first went up to see Rudy's mother, I spent an hour with her, 2 hours. Every price of everything she wanted to sell me was 5 times more expensive than it should have been. And I finally walked out of there and said, "Well, Stuart, you're not going to be in the Asian art business. This is impossible." So that night I was teaching a meditation class. And I went up to Rudy. I said, "Rudy, what?" And I heard a voice scream at me from the cosmos, "Buy my mother a bottle of scotch." So the next day, it was Rudy telling me this: "Go buy my mother and bring her a bottle of scotch." The next day I went to a liquor store. I bought a bottle of Chivas Regal because I knew she liked Chivas Regal. I went to her gallery. I walked in, I opened the bag. I gave her the bottle of scotch. The entire energy changed. The prices went down to where everything was affordable and I could do business. I mean, it was a bottle of scotch enabled me to ultimately get into the Asian art business. So you never know what is going to work. You just have to be open to the possibilities that life brings, and you have to be able to listen and say, "Okay, let me try something," even if it's outrageous. And I'm telling you, I got in the Asian art business because of a bottle of scotch. And that day, she couldn't have been kinder to me. She would make me lunch, and she this, and I spent the whole day with her, you know, and we finally filled up 2 truckloads of art, you know, and it was a bottle of scotch. I mean, my whole life has been that way. I was made a teacher of this meditation at a poker game. Rudy used to love to play poker. He loved. He just did it for enjoyment. It wasn't a habit, or wasn't a gambler. So we would do it and kid around. And we were in Big India, and he was supposed to teach the class at noon. And we were having a little poker game about 11:30, 11:15. And in the middle of the game, he hits me in the ribs. How would you like to teach the meditation today? I mean, I was made a guru at a poker game. It's ridiculous. And I looked at him, I said, "You always do this to me." "You always do this to me." He said, "Go take a shower and come down. I want you to teach the class today." That's how I became a teacher of this work. Of course, it took years of building the system to where I was able to do it. I could have said, "Oh God, at a poker game, a bottle of scotch." You never know what the hell is going to work for you in your life. But you got to build a system that is conscious of living in the moment, that you can do these things. Without the system, you can't do these things.
Thank you.
Anyway, I could tell a million stories. That most of them were fairly outrageous, and all of them were truly a point of me arriving at a place in myself where I could do the things I was being asked to do.
Do you feel that there has to be a sort of non-attachment to outcome?
Yes, because when the time came, I was living in Denton, Texas. I had real estate all over the place, where the ashram did. I had bakeries. I had a candy manufacturing business that was selling candy bars all over the United States. I had, kind of an antique business. I had a million things going on, ashrams all over the place. And a teacher in India told me, you have to leave Texas. I knew I had to do this, but I had to get confirmation. And Kala Rinpoche told me, you have to leave Texas. If you go back to New York, your teachings will be known all around the world. 6 months later, I gave it all up. I gave it all away because my spiritual practice was more important. And I knew that whatever I did, things would come, things would come that I needed to function in the world. But I gave the whole thing away. I just walked away from it. Said, I got to go back to New York. I cannot live here anymore. And that's what happened. Within 2 years, I was teaching in Greece, and Zurich. I was teaching in Berlin. I was teaching in Paris. I was teaching in South America, in the Middle East. It was unbelievable what took place. And now Zoom, which is all over the world. So yes, you have to be detached. I mean, we have children, we have to love them and help them grow and nurture them and support them, but then let go of them, let them live their own lives. But just to finish this up, my need now and then is stronger to be with God and have a spiritual life. That any reward that life presented to me was secondary to that. And all the rewards came. I mean it. Money and this and that. I've written a dozen books, for God's sake. They're not bestsellers, but books that save people's lives. All of it comes. We just need the energy to produce and to stay detached. Does anyone else have a question? And God is love. That really is the answer. God is joy. God is love. God is forgiveness. That's a big one. Forgiving yourself, forgiving other people. God is being able to move forward in your life and not to be stuck behind all of that, those encumbrances that keep us from truly functioning. And God is simplicity, But you got to burn through your karma to get to a very simple place inside yourself. Does anyone else have a question? Great questions. Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions, there will be meditation on Tuesday. Looking forward to seeing everybody. And again, I humbly thank you all. Your presence here really is an amazing teacher for me. And I just am very grateful to be part of this and to be truly sitting here with all of you and letting your presence here teach me what I have to do to grow in my life. So God bless you all. Thank you. And there'll be class on Tuesday. I'm hoping to see you all then.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.